When you live in a small town, everyone knows where you've been and what you have done. I've been trying to leave this old town since I...
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. I'm Zeta.
And I'm Kelly, and you're listening to
Two Sides and the Truth. Hey, y'all, guess what?
We just made it to the cabin.
We're going to do all our segments this episode from the cabin on a little, I don't know if it's even a girls' weekend. It's a Kelly Zeta weekend.
It's our weekend.
It's an our weekend.
We're girls.
Yeah. It is a girls' weekend. Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I'm just a girl.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, Kelly, tell them about this episode.
So this week we're going to do a quick catching up. Our segment this week, we're going to do some I've Got Some Thoughts, and we'll share with you some thoughts that we have as we are here at the cabin this weekend, because we're going to record like a different segment every day. And then we'll also have the social media shout outs, and you will find out what our prop and pose is for this week.
Okay, it all sounds good. I guess we're going to start with the catching up.
Yep. Right into it.
Right into it. And y'all just get ready, because this is ridiculous. This just happened to me yesterday. And I couldn't even wait to I couldn't even make Kelly wait to hear the story until normally I make her wait until we're recording, and I had to tell her as soon as I saw her today.
And I totally get it.
So, we knew we were going to come up here to the cabin this weekend, and my truck is a mess. I keep my house clean, my truck not so much. I am one of those girls that just throws everything in the back seat. And so I knew that we had a lot of stuff to carry with us. And so I was like, okay, I need to go vacuum out the truck. And so yesterday I went to my little local car wash by my house. And it's literally 3 blocks from my house, 4 blocks. It's right there. It's walking distance. And I have been going to the same car wash for years, even before I lived in this house. And it's smack in the middle of Waxahachie. And so it's not secluded. It is literally right in the middle of smack of town. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go vacuum out my truck. And it's about 6 o'clock yesterday, and I get over there. And as soon as I get to the truck, get my mats out and, start getting ready to vacuum, I realized that there are 2 mats that are black that the previous person that had vacuumed had left there. And so I kept thinking, someone's going to come back for these. And I don't think I mentioned this to you when I told you this story, Kelly. But one of the things that I did is I thought, Waxahachie's not a small town, but it still kind of has a small town feel. And there's a local page that everybody posts on. So I was like, I'm going to put these mats up here for an hour, thinking someone might see it.
Yeah.
And so I posted a picture of the mats, and I was like, hey, everybody at the car wash, these mats are here, and they look new, so if they're yours, come get them. And so I post that, and then I start to vacuum. And there was one other guy there, and he was next to me at the vacuum. And he was, I thought, Hispanic. I'm not sure. I didn't really look at him closely. And he was just vacuuming his vehicle, and I was about getting mine ready to vacuum. And right before I start to vacuum, this truck drives up, or car drives up, and they're on the other side of me. And there's no reason for them to be there, because there are more than one vacuum sections, and the other one nobody was at, so that would have been where you would have pulled up if you were going to vacuum, and nobody was using the car washes. So if you were going to wash your car, you would have pulled into the car wash bay.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what's he doing? And then I'm like, oh, I bet these are his mats. This must be what it is.
Yeah.
And so I kind of look at him, but I'm not staring at him. I just figured he would roll his windows down and say, hey, do you mind if I grab my mats? Because I was parked next to where they were. And so I kind of just glanced at him, and he starts motioning me to come over to him. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I just kind of looked at him like, no. But I don't think I even shook my head. I just kind of looked at him confused.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah. So he rolls his window down, and he is a young, I would say 25 to 30-year-old Indian man. And he says in very broken English, and I guess technically it doesn't matter what color they are. I'm telling you this for a reason. I'll get there. And so he says in broken English with his accent, he rolls down his window and he says to me, "Sex for money? Sex for money?"
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, "What?
Absolutely not.
No." And I say it just like that. I'm like, "No." Like, I'm just shocked.
Yeah.
I'm not looking hot, y'all. Like, I'm vacuuming. I'm not even vacuuming. I'm not bending over. I'm getting ready to vacuum. And so I'm like, "No." And then he says it again, "Sex for money?" And I'm like, "No." Like, I say it more direct, like less confused. It's definite no.
It's a definite no.
And he just rolls his window up and continues. And the guy on the other side of me is vacuuming his vehicle out, so he didn't hear it.
Yeah.
And he's like his body's half in his vehicle on the other side of his vehicle, and he's vacuuming. And so I'm like, what just happened? Oh my God, that just happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm just shocked.
Yeah.
And I just got nervous, and so I just jumped inside of my truck and locked the doors and called Rick. And I was like, "Oh my God, you're not gonna believe what just happened." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Did you cuss him out?" I was like, "No." I was shocked. He was like, "Did you pull your gun?" I'm like, "No." I was in shock. And he was like, "You did not handle this at all well." And
you never know how you're going to handle situations like that, okay? You think you're going to...
Yes, I'm mouthy. I really thought I would have mouthed off.
It's pretty surprising that he caught you off guard.
I guess because I thought he was going to ask for the mats. So in my head...
You weren't ready for that.
No, and I did notice, like, before he even got the words out of his mouth, as soon as he rolled his window down, I realized his interior of his vehicle was a very light tan, and there was no way those were his car mats.
Like, this isn't adding up.
So at that point, I'm very confused, and he's not spoken. I'm like, what's he gonna ask me? I guess, you know. And so he leaves, and I call Rick, and we just, talk about it. And he was like, "So he left?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw him get on 77. He left. He didn't just like pull in front of it. I saw him get on 77, which is, the main road right there." And so he was like, "Oh," I was like, "I'm gonna finish vacuuming," because that guy was next to me, and I didn't really feel anything was coming bad from him. But then I start questioning if he's also Indian and they're together, and is this a sex trafficking thing? Like,
I just got caught in this triangle.
And I don't mean that because they're Indian. I just mean, are they together?
Yeah.
And I couldn't really tell I hadn't stared at him very closely, And so I'm just like, and then right about as I got out of my truck at this point, and I'm like, I had all my mats out of my truck, and I was about to vacuum. I had everything done to vacuum. I had taken trash out and organized and everything already. So all my stuff was outside my truck, so I had to get out. So I get out, and I start messing with the truck, and I think, okay, he's gone. And, and then the other guy says to me, I'm about to put my quarters in. Like, I have 2 or 3 quarters already in. And he says, "Hey, I got a minute left on this vacuum. Do you want it?" Real nice. And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much. No, I already had my quarter in." Like, as he did it, it goes, "Rah."
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Okay." And so he sets it down and he leaves. And then I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like, he, was a nice guy.
We're good.
And so he leaves. And then I'm like, but now I'm by myself. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to get this done. So I vacuum. I start vacuuming, but I'm kind of like keeping an eye on things as I'm vacuuming. And then I get all that done, and I get everything back into my truck except the mats. And I take the mats, and I walk them to the bay, the car wash bay, because I need to hose them off, because they're like the plastic mat, the heavy-duty truck mats. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to spray these off. So I take them up there and clip them on the little clip things, and I start spraying them. And then they're done, and I still have some minutes left. And so I'm like, I'm just going to pull my truck up and just rinse off the front windshield because we're going on this trip, and it's pointless to wash before the trip. It's going to get bugged out.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just get the windshield clean. So as soon as I pull my truck up, and as soon as I start cleaning the windshield off, he comes back.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I'm like, what the fuck? What is about to happen? And by then another guy I think was in one of the other bays. I'm pretty sure the far bay for me had a guy in it, but he wouldn't have been able to see, hear anything. And so I'm like, And I can tell he's like trying to get my attention again, but he's not getting out of his vehicle. He's not rolling his windows down, but he's parked between the vacuums and me. So he's not next to the vacuums. There are plenty of bays if he wanted to wash his vehicle. He is obviously pulling up on me.
He's staking you out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what the fuck? So I just immediately stop doing what I'm doing. And I go to, you use those water wand things to clean the front of your windshield. So I'm, trying to do that, get the wand and put it away. And it goes in that like holster metal thing.
Uh-huh.
And I spray my hand. And as you can tell,
ouch.
I cut my skin open because that stuff is powerful.
Very.
And because I was just like scurrying to get out of there. And so I had already, one of my mats had already kind of fallen when I was cleaning them. So I grabbed it and I threw it in the back. And then I grabbed the other three and I threw them in the back and I got out of there. Like from the time he pulled up behind me, I was maybe like 5 seconds and I was out. Like I was like done.
That's good.
And so I get in my truck and I leave, and I'm watching him in my rearview mirror the whole time, making sure he's not watching me. And I never even get on 77. Instead, I take the parking lots, so it'd be real obvious if he was like peeking behind me. I didn't have to look at other cars coming, anything. I could just there was parking lots right there. I could just go into other drive parking lots. So I do that, and then I go around the block, and I immediately call Rick. And I'm like, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. He came back and he was trying to get my attention. And I just like threw everything in the truck. And he was like, you didn't pull your gun on him?
Once again.
And I'm like, no, I was freaking out. And he was like, well, now I'm freaking out. I thought I trained you better.
Why do you have a gun, Zeta?
Pull the gun. And I was like, I just wanted to make sure I got my mats. Like, I needed my hands free for the mats. Those are expensive. And he was like, no, you pull the gun. And I was like, well, I don't know that he doesn't have a gun. And he was like, I assure you that dumbass didn't have a gun. I was like, oh my God. He goes, you didn't even cuss him out? What is wrong? Go back and get his license plate. Call the police and go back and get his license plate because that is so close to our house.
Yeah.
And our daughters walk around the house. Mm-hmm. We walk. You walk by yourself some nights. Like, go now and do this.
I'm glad somebody was thinking. Good job, Rick.
I know. I totally sucked in this situation.
It happens.
And I just thought I was past this stage in life. I was like, I'm old. No one's trying to steal me. And so, and I'm thick, man. He couldn't have lifted me. He would have needed a buddy. That was part of the reason I thought maybe that's his buddy. So then I pull around the block, and there's a privacy fence between the car wash and this building next to it. So I stayed on the street, and I was able to pull up just close enough that I could get about a foot of the back of his car, and he was still parked there. But he'd kind of backed up, though, somewhat. And he couldn't see me because of the privacy fence. So I called the police and told them what happened, and I pulled I took a picture of his car just in case he left. And it's just, like I said, like a foot of the back of his vehicle. But it's very, if I saw the car, I would know exactly it's the car.
Yeah, very distinct.
It's a little bit older, a Chevy small car, but it had like a spoiler on it, and it had like a little spot where it maybe had hit a white vehicle on the back, left white paint. And then I got the license plate, and I couldn't see I was far enough apart. I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to tell in the picture about the license plate, especially me, because I'm blind. So I was like, well, I'll just get a picture. Well, the cops show up immediately. And they immediately pull up behind him. I see them get out of their vehicle, and I'm like, okay, I can go home now. So I get home, and the police call me, and they're like, hey, we're talking to him, and he's denying everything.
Oh, of course.
And they were like,
oh, yeah, I did that.
Right. So I had talked to 911. So I hadn't actually spoken to the police before now.
Yeah.
So I tell them, they were like, what happened? And I tell them the whole story and the broken accent and what he said and the color of his car and how old he is and
the interior.
Yeah. And so they were like, the cop giggled a little. He was, dang, yeah, that's exactly what we're dealing with. Yeah, that's all true. And I was like, yeah. So if he didn't, because he told them he didn't speak to me. And they were like, there's no way that he didn't speak to you because the way you described how he's speaking. And so I'm like, yeah. So he goes, they were like, okay, well, do you want to press charges? And I'm like, for what? The guy being like a creepy dude? Like what? What am I pressing charges for? Sexual harassment? I don't know. And he was like, no, solicitation for prostitution.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. I do not need my name attached to a prostitution bust. I don't care if I'm not a prostitute.
This doesn't look good on paper.
That does not look good on paper. And I don't want the guy to know my name.
Right.
Right. And I was like, so no, what I really want you to do is just find out who he is, get his information, scare the shit out of him so he maybe won't do this to another woman. And, that's pretty much
Just
it.
document.
Yeah. And I was like, but no, I don't want to press charges. And I was like, now my husband might when he gets home because, we're not, my significant other. And I was like, he might not he might tell me he's kind of upset that I didn't basically shoot the guy. And I was like, because I do carry. And the cop's like, I'm so glad you carry. And I was like, well, apparently I don't break it out when necessary. I got an earful. And so he laughed. And then he was like, well, I understand why you don't want your name out there. And he was like, I understand. And he goes, we're going to take care of it. I said, okay. So he calls me back like 10 minutes later. And he says, okay, we took care of it. We got all his information, And he didn't admit to it, but he kind of like acknowledged, yeah, that's what happened. I was like, okay. And so he was like, so we took care of it. And I was like, I hope you scared the shit out of him. And he was like, oh yeah, he's scared. I was like, okay. And so on his merry way, I guess he went. And so then I got home and I told my kids and Rick and them, and we're all like standing in the kitchen, like, everybody's shocked. Like, I told the cop, I was like, I am 49 years old. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? I look like a mom, okay?
Hey, you know what? Everybody's got a type.
I find myself to be an attractive mom. I like how I look. I think I look nice for my age. I'm not saying I'm old, but I am saying he was like 25. I could have given birth to him. And so I was just like, oh my gosh. So I told the cop that, and he was laughing at me too. And so Rick, as I'm telling them this, he goes, you know what, you should have yelled. Like, he's telling me what all these things I should have done.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you know what, you should have yelled. And I'm like, what? And he said, you should have yelled, my uterus is currently falling out of my body.
Now, that'd be a good deterrent.
Because, menopause.
Yeah.
Which I thought
all makes sense.
I thought that was pretty funny. And so I was like, okay, honey, next time I'll bring that up.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
While I'm waving the gun.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I will be yelling, my uterus is falling out as I hold a gun to their head.
That's some scary shit, if you ask me.
Yes. And that's my catching up.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't have much to compete with that. I'm going to keep mine short and sweet.
Well, I feel like for the rest of my life, I'm randomly going to yell, sex for money. Because it's funny.
It really is. That was a good one. My catching up is, so I wanted to give y'all an update on my new job. So I officially did my first weekend of working both of the shops. My very first, I worked both the shops at the same time because they are connected. I was like, oh, that's a lot to take on for like my first weekend. I had worked at Black Label Vintage by myself for Melanie, but this was my first week of working both of the shops by myself. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Zeta came up and hung out with me because I was a little like, if we get slammed and I'm having to run 2 cash registers, I might need some assistance on, watching people walking through. So
Right.
We had a really great day.
I sat on the couch all day and drank champagne.
It was wonderful. We had a little impromptu kind of last minute letting people come up and
Yes.
meet and greet.
And we had a few people pop in.
Yeah, and I know that was last minute. So if you are wanting to be able to, we're going to actually do meet and greets this season. I know we said that last season, but we're going to. There's actually one coming up in November. So every month, Waxahachie does a girls' night on the square where, the different businesses will have drinks available for people who come in.
Like as you're walking around.
Browse and have a drink while you're doing this. And so I have never done it before. I really want to do it. So the next one is in November, and it is on a Thursday. So it's always the second Thursday of the month. So it's going to be on the 14th of November. And I very much intend on being part of that. So I want that to be one of our meet and greets so we can meet up at the shops and have some drinks, walk around.
So we need to decide right now what time we're going to meet and where so that they can go ahead and plan it. In case they don't listen again, like this is This is it. This is the official.
Yeah.
So what time does it start?
I don't know what I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it just goes all night. It's until, because the shops are around their close usually
like
around
5 or 6.
But I think they stay open a little bit later on those nights. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would be at downtown. I mean, I'm going to be at the shop anyways, but I would be downtown, probably about 5.
Okay.
That's
so
what I
maybe
would say.
officially meet at Owl's at 6.
Yeah.
That way people know where to meet us.
Okay.
So we'll just meet at Owl's at 6, and if you want to walk along with us, is that what we're going to do?
That sounds good to me.
Then we'll do that, and from there we'll start going to the shops because Owl's is there, and you can just Google Down the Hatch in Waxahachie, and it's in downtown. It's in walking distance of where we'll be walking, so I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And next weekend it's kind of a meet and greet-ish. It's not, but we'll both be downtown for
Yes.
different things. So Kelly will be working, and I will be, which you can tell him where, but I will be, Al's asked me to be there at 4 o'clock, and Amy and I might record a mini podcast for the other podcast live at Al's.
That's cool.
If we don't, we'll just be there. So if you want to meet us at 4 o'clock next Saturday, the 26th.
Yes.
And it's Texas Country Reporter Festival. I don't know if they still call it that. Yeah, they still
they
call
do.
it that. Anyways, it's a big deal. It's a massive festival in downtown Waxahachie.
So much fun. So much
Wear
to
your
do.
comfy shoes. Lots of shopping. It's a great girls' day for girlfriends.
Oh, yeah.
And not just shopping in the stores, but there's booths. There's a
there's
band.
there's
There's food.
vendors lined up and down. Like there's oh my gosh,
It's the
there's
biggest.
so much to do.
It's the biggest one-day festival in Texas every year. So it's a big deal, and it's a lot of fun. And you'll be doing. you'll
Yeah,
be at the
so
shop.
I'm going to be working at Atomic Vintage, and Sharon's also going to have her pop up. She does, mobile bartending, so that's going to be behind the shops. And she has a couple of different people coming out. She has a lady who's going to be doing permanent jewelry for
Okay.
people who want to come and buy permanent, have it put on, and different. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to be giving out drinks. So definitely, if you are going to be hitting up the Texas Reporter Festival next Saturday, the 26th, make sure that you come by Atomic Vintage, and so I can make you a drink.
All right, yay.
That'd be so much fun.
You're bouncing now. Y'all,
know.
okay, being in the cabin is a little different because it's echoey because it's all wood.
Yeah.
Like there's no carpet. There's a few big carpets, but they're not in the room we're in, and it wouldn't make a difference. There's wood everywhere. So we're going to echo, and right now we're playing with where we're going to set up, but right now we're set up on the table, and we both talk with our hands.
Yes.
Me in particular has already hit the table like 20 times. So if you hear little bumps, it's us because we can't stop moving our hands.
We're in a new place and we don't know what to do with
We
our
don't know
hands.
how to handle ourselves,
We're
y'all.
sorry. Sorry,
Yeah.
not sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got some thoughts.
What are your thoughts?
This weekend, coming home to San Saba, I've been gone for 3 months, and that's a long time for me since my brother lived here and I spent a lot of time with him here. That might be the longest period of time I've gone in the last probably 6 years without coming. Maybe 7. And so we get into Goldthwaite, which we're in the hill country of Texas. And the last town, we are right smack between San Saba and Goldthwaite pretty much. And so the last town you drive through is Goldthwaite. So years ago, I was in town at the cabin. A few years ago, I was I stayed the weekend at the cabin by myself. And I was here for 3 days, I believe. And so whenever I left to head home on Monday, there's this little place in town, and I've told this story before, so I'm not going to tell the full version, but there's this little place in town that has lunch, and I sat there at lunch, and I ended up meeting some people sitting around me that knew my family. And so one couple knew my mom, and the other one knew my step-grandmother that lived in this home with my grandfather, and knew my dad, my grandfather, and actually is a distant relative of mine on my grandfather's mother's side, which is Zeta, who I am named after. And I never knew Zeta. She died when she was, I think, 34, and her children were still young. So her sister-in-law, Zola, which we also called Jody, raised her children, my grandfather, the one that lived in this cabin and built this cabin. And so I knew Richard, my grandfather, but Zeta died when he was a child, so I didn't know her, and that's obviously who I'm named after. And so, I think of her often. I have never seen a picture of her. No one knows anything about her. My grandfather wasn't really someone that spoke. He definitely wasn't going to speak of his dead mom. So we know nothing about Zeta, nothing. Not about her personality, not about anything. I don't know where she's from. I don't know anything. So this guy explains to me he's a distant relative on Zeta's side and that she grew up down the road kind of by Goldthwaite, like down the river, really, on the other end of the river. And so that means that when she was young or she was alive, 100 years ago. I mean, she died 100 years ago, almost 90 years ago, I think. And Zeta spent time in Goldthwaite, and Goldthwaite looks the same. So my thought process was the original Zeta walked these streets. As we drive through it, that's what I'm thinking, is the original Zeta walked these streets. And no one knows anything about her. Like it's almost like she's forgotten, but she's not forgotten.
She is not.
Because my mom named me after her, and my brother named his daughter after me. So people will still ask about Zeta. How did you get this name? Oh, because of Zeta and Zeta. And so that sounds really silly and maybe overthought. But when you have an unusual name, you get asked a lot about your name. It is a big part of my identity to have an unusual name. Like, I guess that sounds weird, but
it doesn't.
No,
it sounds cool.
I'm like, Cher, I don't need a last name. Like, people remember Zeta. And so I just was thinking this about her as we were driving through Goldthwaite. And then I have you with me, and I'm thinking, did she have a best friend?
Oh, I'm sure she did.
Did she walk Goldthwaite with the best friend? And, what was she like? Like, I don't know. I'll never know. I don't have a single picture of her. But I did get, at my niece's wedding 2 years ago, my Aunt Kathy has been cleaning out things in her home, and she came across a quilt given to her that had belonged to Zeta. So, Zeta had made it. So
That's so cool.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
And so I've told this story, but we have new listeners since then, and it's been a few years. But so when she gave me that, she gave it to me in a box that was the box of the gift I was giving my niece at her wedding that same day. I was at my niece's wedding when she gave me the blanket. And literally, she gave me the same box that my niece's gift was in.
Oh, my God.
It was for a certain cast iron pot. Like, she must own the same pot, and she used it. Anyway, so I was like, what crazy connections this world is. And so I'm home, and I always put a rock or a flower or something on Zeta's grave, and I always kind of stop and say, hey, what's up, Zeta?
What up, girl?
and so I guess that's my thought, is that we're not forgotten until people stop talking about us. And, there was a beautiful woman out there with a whole life that, died too soon. And I just feel like it's cool that I get to be the one that continues her legacy, and my niece will continue her legacy. And I'm pretty sure one of my kids will name their kid after me because they kind of say it all the time, but we'll see. So there might be another legacy one. And
to be continued.
Yeah, so when you're naming your kids fun names, which I got some myself, think about all those legacy names. I'd pick from there first.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
I love that.
I'm sorry I overtook.
No, you didn't. So my thoughts are that, first of all, I'm so excited to be at the cabin again. I feel just like rejuvenated. But every time I come to the cabin, obviously we do photos. Well, my phone never usually works most of the time out here. I don't have service. So most of the time I forget that I have a phone when I'm out here. But this time I actually had service. I was like, cool, I could do social media stuff and, contribute to our working / fun vacation that we've got going on. But last time that I was at the cabin, one of my things I wanted to do a boudoir photo shoot. And because I just absolutely love that kind of like art and genre of photography. I always am very drawn to that. And so I'm like, I definitely want to take some photos. And I did whenever the last time I came, and absolutely loved it. And so this year I was like, I'm going to do another boudoir photo shoot. And so I've been playing around with that and doing some photos, and it's so much fun. It's something that I probably, in the back of my mind, I was like, I can't do that. Like, not that I don't think that looked good, but you have doubts about yourself. You're like, I don't think that I'll look good enough in a photo to take a photo like that. But I've decided, obviously, that I'm just going to do what I love to do, have fun, and see what you get out of it, So it's a lot of fun.
So I always find funny with your pictures, funny is not the right word, what is the word for it? How good you are at knowing how to take a really good picture. And I don't know what your plans are to do with these particular pictures other than use them for yourself.
Yeah, that's usually what it's for.
Yeah, which I think is beautiful because my mom did pictures and I've talked about it before occasionally to my friends about how as a child, my mom had naked pictures of herself that were taken by a professional, and they were in, at one point, the New York Museum of Modern Art.
Yeah.
And they're so beautiful.
Yes.
And I actually use 2 of them often on my Facebook as on her birthday as her profile, but I removed the naked part. It's
you
just her
censor
face.
it.
Yes, obviously. But I am the owner of the photos as her daughter.
Yes.
And she took the pictures when she was 19 and pregnant with my brother. And the title of her collection in the museum was Young Tex's Mother. She wasn't really showing. She was maybe 3 months pregnant. Mm-hmm. But they're beautiful, and I love them. And I know you don't have children and don't plan to have children, but I love that you do that, and I hope that you print some for yourself.
So most of it really is just for my own personal to have. It boosts my confidence. It makes me happy. It gets me out of my comfort zone. It's a hobby art that I really enjoy, and I'm glad that I started doing, but it is very personal. I do share, last time I did it, I had a picture that I shared on social media, but that was just a cute, a little risque, but nothing bad, because I'm not to the point where I'm comfortable, it's not all going to be out there.
Yeah.
But, I did print off a picture that I gave to Dante, and so that's where I go with it. I have pictures that I'm proud of that I'll show, and then but most of it is for me.
Yeah,
and a little bit for him.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I love that you do it, and I do. The part that I say laugh is because when we take pictures or whatever, which we have to do for the podcast, whatever.
Yeah, because we're working girls now.
I always look like a deer caught in headlights. I absolutely hate it. And when I was young, I did model, professionally, got paid. But I was never good at print. It didn't matter. I just deer caught in headlights. I was always better at runway. I was better at, other aspects of it. Yeah. But I was built more for print. So I always find it funny because you can just nail it every time. You just nail it your body.
Thank you.
And I think that's all, you do a great, you're beautiful, but so good. I wish every woman was this confident.
I still wish that I'm as confident some days, but doing things like that really helps. And I noticed that. And that's why I do push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I say that because it's something that I didn't really feel like I could ever do. And I'm why would I have that thought? Why would I just want to initially think, I could never do that? Because there's so much that I can do, and if I just don't limit myself.
Right,
so.
and don't let others, how you feel.
Yeah.
So good job.
Thanks. All right, so now we have a few social media shout-outs to get into. We have some listener messages Zayda's going to share with you.
I'm sure I've missed a few. I've gotten a lot. Anytime we have a beginning, we
get more. Yeah, it's busy.
So I wanted to touch on a few. And so the first one was from Leah. I'm hoping that's how you pronounce your name. And she says, "Hi, Zayda. I just listened to the new episode, and I loved it. And I love to hear y'all's adventures and stories. So I'm a fan of the new format. Text from Zayda is top-notch."
Yes, it is.
It is kind of a fan favorite of ours. And then the other one, Holly sent us, and Holly, we talk about often.
BFF.
Yes. She said, "First of all, the recent vintage photos you both took are fire, gorgeous. I'm so glad y'all are back at it. I missed you both. I absolutely love when y'all talk catching up with your life, telling and being open and personal. Please never stop that. I think I recall Kelly saying she likes to sing. And she would if someone asked. Well, I personally would love to hear her. I can't wait to hear the next one. And then she put, I would love to hear her sing. I guess she thought she wasn't clear, but
yes,
she was. And then I got another one. I love this week's episode this past week. You and I are living the same life. I too have a circle of friends. However, I am the one in dispute with one of them, and don't want to cause the others to choose. So now I'm pulling away to not cause that. Thanks for being raw and honest. And yes, this is a new era. I turned 50, and now I want to live in peace and not drama.
Amen.
So see, we're all going through this bullshit. You know,
We got you, girl. We're here.
but don't seclude yourself in the process from continuing having relationships with these people. You might just have to find your own course of doing
You
it.
might be in a rough patch, or you might.
'Cause that's hard.
Cut a bitch off. Who knows?
Yeah. Or you might be like me, like 4 other friend groups. You can work it out. Like,
Yeah, I'm just gonna check out of this one and check into this one for a little bit.
We'll give y'all a little break.
Yeah, you'll learn timeout.
And so this one I think was sent yesterday, and we are still at the cabin.
Yes, we are.
So this morning is Sunday morning, and I woke up and I was trying to get up early enough to see the deer, and I didn't know how late y'all had stayed up because I went to bed first. It turns out it was right after me.
Yeah,
And
we're like, you know what? That sounds like a good idea.
yeah. So I got up, and it was like 5:30 in the morning. It was still dark. So I decided to make myself some coffee and go on the porch and wait for the sun to come up and the deer to come out and everything. So I take my phone out there and open up, and this is the first thing I see this morning. This is my first thing in the morning. And so it says, Zeta, so I really like your opinion. For a year, I've volunteered at almost all my, this is a Nicole. For a year, I've volunteered at almost all of my apartment complexes' semi-monthly events. Taco Tuesday, wine and cheese. The girl in charge I've become friends with, and she put in parentheses, with is hired to do these and knows about my tree nut allergy but is careless. Each event is 4 to 6 hours of my time. A month ago during setup, she gave me a pastry. Yes, it was my responsibility to ask what was in it, but it happened so suddenly. I had a bite-sized treat and knew right away cashew. I ended up in the ER. I gotta find it now. Oh, wrong way. Sorry, it's a long one. I ended up in the ER, and I got my final bill last week, and it was $1,600 at the end of the day.
Wow.
Well, I think 100%. I think I'm majority responsible. People agree that I have the right to ask the complex if they'll help me pay for it, as she was aware of my allergy. The lady worked for them.
Yeah.
Please note that this 41-year-old woman's first few comments when I told her were, "Sorry, girl, I feel bad. Pay what you can. They can't deny your credit if you don't pay the rest." And when
gosh.
Yeah. And when I said I wanted to see what the office could do, she said, "But you could get me in trouble doing that."
Well, it is not your job to keep her out of trouble with her job.
Well, and I the first thing that I thought to myself, quote unquote volunteer. Is she just using you for free labor?
No, I mean, that's what that sounds like.
And the only thing I can think of is that you would only be in trouble if she shouldn't have used you for free labor. If there wasn't a contract signed saying that they're not responsible. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, that made me cough thinking about you. I'm serious. But that was my first thought, is why would she be in trouble?
Yeah.
Unless she knew and she was being careless. So
yeah, or I mean, she could be in trouble for serving somebody for not being cautious with a nut allergy. That's admissible in court.
Yeah.
I mean, she could get in trouble by her job because technically she did not do her job as a food service employee to do that. So yeah, she could be held liable for it, and she would have.
Well, she probably doesn't have a food handler license.
I know, and that's why a lot of people could be in trouble.
Yeah, it sounds like she was using you.
Yeah, you're being asked to sweep something under the rug to keep everybody else happy and afloat. So that's the decision you have to make. Are you going to be a doormat for someone, or are you going to be an advocate for yourself? And it's hard to be the advocate because sometimes it puts you in a really uncomfortable position. But when you advocate for yourself, you make sure that you're keeping yourself checked, you're keeping your mental health in check, you're being a good example to everybody else around you who's like, oh my gosh, yes. So I learned that lesson a hard way too. You need to make sure you're transparent with everybody, and you need to make sure that you are advocating for yourself.
I wouldn't necessarily go through her.
No, you just need to go. You had the right idea. Your intuition was correct. You needed to go and tell the people in charge, hey, this is what happened, and that needs to be what happens.
And I wouldn't ask for the whole thing. I think you're right about the fact that
you don't ask for anything. Yeah. You just say, this is what happened, this is the bill, and we need to figure it out.
Right, yeah. And be fair about it. If you feel like the majority of it's on you, then I would say you pay the majority of the bill.
I think none of the majority is. Some of it is, but it was under a professional circumstance. Yeah. So it kind of takes, you're still in the equation, but
The volunteering thing is what's throwing me off.
well, you never know. Some people do like to volunteer.
No, I'm saying I don't know that the apartment complex offers volunteers. It sounds to me as though she's calling it a volunteer. And
I know.
I know. That's just me, background in management speaking. Like, I know that I would be in trouble at work for that.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought on that. So, look, you got a little question and answer in your little social media feedback. I don't know that helped you at all, but that's the best I got.
That's what we got.
There you go.
All right, so our prop and pose for this week is this book that Zeta got for us from
I got it from Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, well, I know, but...
Well, it's a longtime friend of mine. I wanted to say Amazon because I don't know where else it's available. But my friend Jen Martin, I have known since I was a kid, wrote her first book. And we always talk about chasing your dreams and doing something, you're never too old to start chasing a creative avenue or do whatever you want to do. And so I thought, I got to buy this book. And read it. And so I bought Kelly and I one to look through it this weekend if we had downtime. And we did start looking through it. And our friend Sunday is here. She also started reading it. And so we'll take a little picture with it. And if anyone's interested in it, we'll be posting it. And you can look it up online. It's called The Kiss. It's by Eden Hill. It's book one. It's Eden Hill book one because it takes place in a place called Eden Hill.
Yeah.
And her name is Jen Martin. And so far, I like it. It's like a little, what kind of book is it? A romance?
Yeah, so it starts off, you're getting to know this little girl. Well, she's not little, but she's graduating high school. And it alludes to there's going to be some kind of romance forming between her and a boy who is about to be leaving town.
Yeah.
So
we haven't finished the book. We are in it.
Completely relatable. I kind of felt like I was just reading the beginning of my book, but I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and it's a hometown girl doing this, and I believe she has another book coming out too. So she's really chasing after it. So it's going to be a series, basically, about the same characters, is my understanding of it. And I have to say also that this is how sweet Jen is. Jen is not someone that I run with. We were just friends in school. We weren't like best friends. We never went out together, birthday parties or whatever. But her and her husband have brought me back numerous rocks from vacation points for my mom's grave. And where this book, one of her books takes place that she's been working on, she got me a rock from there.
Wow.
Yeah. So she went to visit it and got me a rock from there.
That's so sweet.
And it is on my mom's grave now.
The circle of life.
It is. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us. Maybe come back next week and bring a friend.
Yeah. And remember, there's always 3 sides to every story.
2 sides and the truth.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Oh, I'm coming home.